Okay, so today we're reviewing section 6-5 because on Thursday you have a quiz on 6-5 and 6-6. And if you're online, I'm going to have you take that quiz with Mrs. Bautista, so you're going to have to schedule that with her. I will let her know that this morning, so don't email her quite yet, but I'll email you when you need to schedule. And then tomorrow we'll review 6-6. So let's just review. This section is talking about linear and non-linear functions. So a linear function is a line, right? And any equation that is a line is going to be written in this form. Y equals mx plus b. And any equation that is quadratic or not linear, which is what we're going to be focusing on tomorrow, is going to be written in this form. Okay, so linear just has an x. Nonlinear will have an x squared. So that's the biggest thing that you're going to look for to see if it's linear or nonlinear. Okay, but the first section is telling us graph each function for the given domain. So they gave us the domain. The domain is which values, x or y? X. The domain are the x values. So they gave me all the x's. I have to plug it in and find out what the y's are so I can actually graph this line. So I'm going to put the values they gave me. I like working in this table. I think it's easier. And then I'm just going to start plugging in and solving for y. So y equals 2 times, just take your first value, -4, minus 3. That would be -8 minus 3. -8 minus 3 is going to be -11. So go to the next one. I'm going to plug in my -3 this time. So multiplying first. Now I'm subtracting. And I got -9 for that one. So I see a little bit of a pattern. Let's see if it continues. 2 times -1 this time. Okay. And let's go to 0, which is usually the easiest one. And then +2. Okay. So now that I found all my values, my x and y values, I'm just going to graph this line. And I know it's a line because it matches my y equals mx plus b formula. That is linear. So I'm just going to graph all the points. And I made my graph mainly in the negative area because I have mostly negatives on this one. So -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and -11. -3 and -9. I have -1 and -5, 0 and -3, and then 2 and 1. Okay, and then the hard part is actually connecting all those dots. So let's try. Yay, we did it. Okay, so there's our line for this equation. That's it. So copy this down in your notes, and then I'll be right back with another one. Okay, so for this one, I can already tell it's going to be non-linear because it has an x squared. So I'm going to plug in any number I want this time because it says for all real numbers. So that means I can plug in whatever I want. So we're just going to pick some values for x and then solve for y. And I'm going to pick my usual numbers and just start plugging it in. And I see that it's negative 3x squared, so I also know this parabola is going to open down. Because anytime I have a negative in front of the x squared, the parabola opens down. All right, so first square your negative 2, which becomes a positive 4, and then multiply. Okay, be careful when you square negative 1. Negative 1 squared is just positive 1. Zero is just going to be 0, so I don't even need to do that one. Let's do positive 1. And then 2 again should equal a negative 12. Let's see. Negative 3 times 2 squared. Okay. And remember, my parabola is going to open down, so I want to have my my graph mainly in the negative range. So I'm going to make it, well, that didn't make a straight line, but it's fine. Oh, I keep messing up my straight lines. Okay, you have messy lines today. This is my coordinate plane, and then we're just going to graph. So, negative 2 and negative 12. Yep, that's my first point. No, I'm graphing. Just graphing. And then negative 1. Oh no, I'm on the eraser. I'm having technical difficulties. Okay. Negative 1, negative 3. 1, 2, 3. That's right there. 0, 0 is my vertex, which is nice and easy. Then positive 1, negative 3. Now that I found my vertex, my other points are just going to mirror the points that I already had. So, wait, 1, 2. I put it in the wrong place. Okay, and then just connect your dots. Okay, so if it says graph this problem for all real numbers, that's where you can choose whatever x values you want. Okay. So on this section it says determine if the graph represents a function. If not, explain why. So this is where we use that pencil test, or on my iPad I was using the ruler. If you can move it along the graph vertically, and at every single time only one part of that line is crossing the ruler, then it is a function. So is number 5 a function? Yes, it is a function. Good job, Bradley. Because only one part of the line touches this front part of my ruler at any time. Okay? So I'm just looking at that leading edge of the ruler. And it never touches my line in more than 2 or more than one place. Okay? All right. So let's try it on number 6. Now I can clearly see that my ruler is touching the line in 2 places at once. And that's going to happen all the way across. Everywhere I stop is touching the line in 2 places. So is this a function? No, not a function, because the x values are repeating. Okay? And then if we look at number 7 in the book, I'm not going to take the time to draw it, but number 7, if you were to run that pencil or ruler across that, is that a function? They don't have their books. So the answer is yes, it is a function because it would only touch your ruler at one point at any given time. Okay? Okay, so on this last section, it just says graph each function. So when it asks you to graph a function, you're going to make the XY table. You're going to choose values for X, and then you're going to plug it in and solve for Y. Now, when I look at this formula, I already know this is a line. It's a formula for a line because there's no X squared. So when I graph this, it should look like a straight line. And that's important to keep in mind so that you make sure you're kind of on the right track. So let's plug in these numbers. I get Y equals -2 over 2 plus 2. And Y equals -1 plus 2. Y equals 1. Now I'm going to have a fraction, which is kind of annoying, but it's not the end of the world. So remember, when you get a fraction, you can just use your calculator, divide it out, and use a decimal in its place, which would be -0.5 plus 2, which is going to equal 1.5 or 1.5. Okay? And we can graph that, just graph it halfway between the 1 and the 2. So let's keep going with plugging these in. Y equals 1 over 2 plus 2. So this time I'm going to get 2.5. And then the last one, 2 over 2 plus 2, 1 plus 2, which is 3. Okay? So again, this should look like a straight line. Let's see. Alright, so I have -2 and +1, -1 and 1.5, 0 and 2, 1 and 2.5, and then 2 and 3. Alright, and I can see that I did make a line. So what I would be grading on this problem is, does your graph look like my graph or like the answer that I'm looking for? Right, or very close to it, exactly. And so that's why it's important at the beginning when I said, I know this is going to be a line because there's no x squared. It's kind of important to know that because now I know I was supposed to make a line and I did make a line, so I must have done the right thing. Okay? If you see that it's a line equation and you didn't make a line, you got one of your numbers wrong. So go back and check your math. That's why you need to write all these problems down. Okay? Because if I end up with a point down here and I know I'm supposed to have a line, then I obviously made a mistake when I was calculating whatever that number is. Okay? All right. Copy this down. I'll be right back.